the next one I want to talk about is this idea that there's, smart versus insight, and it almost feels like nowadays there's an overwhelming amount of smart people, very highly educated people can do it. And I'm curious that, is it more important, you think, to be smart, like good, especially us being in sales, someone that's already good at sales, or more someone that has the insight that's going to fit, mesh with the team, have that culture, and then you can teach them to be smart in the way that you want them to be?
Well, I struggle with that a little bit because you're talking let's qualify smart. I think insight is smart. I think insight drives being intelligent. Insight is a big piece of what it looks like, right? And I think insight grows the more we're preparing. The book's a great example of that. And I notice, I recognize many people throughout the books I've read that I've gained from and learned from, and I give them notice for that. So I think having done that, that builds my insight. A lot of what I write about in that book is because I've grown as I've read other books and I've tried things and worked it. Some of them didn't work exactly the way that I had read it, so I did it a little bit different. But a lot of that book's about that. Insight comes from being prepared. Being prepared means you're constantly trying to grow. You're reading, you're looking, you're trying to, you want to be good at your business. I talk to this about all the time. When I was, for years and years, I was on the line in line sales and had a team of salespeople and would do meetings with them, And I used to tell them, guys, you're a doctor, you go to school for like 12 years, right? And then you're constantly getting updated on your profession because things change so fast in the medical world. And they're constantly learning, they're going to conferences, they're reading, they're doing this to be good at their job. What would make you think, if you've chosen your profession to be sales, what would make you think it's any different? You have to constantly be learning. Sales, go back to years ago, sales had a terrible reputation, okay? Think about used car salespersons. Think about the siding on houses. Think about old land salespeople, right? Terrible reputations, right? Bunch of guys in there for themselves just trying to sell whatever it was, whether it did someone any good or anything. Today, the majority, I would say an overwhelming 95, 98% of sales is all based on what will this product do for this person. The successful salespeople today are in it for the other person.
Correct.
Yes, they know they're going to get a benefit, right? But they're not doing it just for the benefit. They're selling a product. I mean, I see people today celebrate, with people that they sold a product to 10, 20 years ago, and they're friends with these people now, and they're celebrating together. And so, it comes down to that, and I think that's what's important. I think you got to prepare. I would tell people for years, you got to, what they call it, sharpen your tools.
Yeah.
And if you're learning and growing and reading constantly, then you're going to have a lot more insight.
Yeah, I love that you wrapped it back to the book, because the book definitely is about the idea that, you're looking for that person that's going to continue to grow versus a person that feels like a know-it-all, right? And that insight is what that mesh with the team is. We will bring him the tools to turn him into a great salesperson, because it is a skill. As long as he understands the value is, your reward comes from how much value you're giving to the other person, right? You always do deserve a reward as long as you're giving value to the other person, versus, like you mentioned, where people were feeling like they weren't getting the value, and that's where the bad name
I had a
came
great
from.
experience that the other day. I'll give you an example. I had a great experience that the other day. We're in the business of building people. Really unique thing, because as you get into the job market today, you've got young people coming in, people, millennials, we'll take all millennials, Gen X's, and I'm a 67-year-old old-time guy. So I've had to learn, because yes, there is a different way to communicate. That's what's important to me, is be able to communicate to somebody. I do take responsibility for that. Communication starts with my ability to touch you in such a way that we now have a conversation, right? And we're discussing and sharing ideas. So the thing that was brought to my attention the other day really made it interesting to me, and it's about and this is how knowledge creates insight, how the brain works. It was shown to me very clearly from someone who just read a book, biologically, why at the age of 23 or 24, males, you can start seeing them develop more and become, and get sort of ignited and start looking towards starting to build their career. It's and it's actually biological because of the development of the brain. The last part of the brain that's going to develop, males, usually your brain's not fully developed till you're in your mid-20s, right? And the last part to develop is your frontal lobe. So that's why, we call it maturity. But that's why. It's because they're now got a more developed brain. So, that gave me an insight. Oh, maybe that's why I'm having challenges getting this younger team over here to buy into some things, because I have to learn to communicate with that. I have to know that first. So that's what the insight came from, getting the knowledge to where I can understand how to apply it.
Yeah, and a lot of if I look back based on that information, a lot of the direction of my life changing towards where I became more accountable was right around that 24, 23
well, you're
year
a
age,
perfect example, my
right?
friend.
When I
You're
decided to stop drinking.
Yeah. Not only that, you're just a great example. I mean, it's everything changed about that age. It's actually great that we're doing this together, and I had that unique insight with you as a son. And I didn't know why until this was like 4 days ago. I got this knowledge. So it's very interesting. It's a great lesson for me of the need to keep learning, keep reading, and also this particular message is, don't just stay inside your own lane. There's stuff to learn outside that lane that really comes back into your lane.
Correct. Let me go a little bit backwards. Obviously we were talking about trust. How do you make sure that you manage trust when a co-leader, or someone that's either a leader for you or sort of similar paces, does something wrong but has the right intentions?
Is that someone above you or someone that's in part of your team?
Yeah, I would say either low, up, sideways, inside the team. I guess just more than anything, how do you make sure that you continue to have
a lot of that comes back. Oh, there you go. Okay, that's the hard conversations. A lot of people avoid that. A lot of people avoid creating a scenario where they can talk to, let's say, their immediate supervisor and discuss openly what they perceive as a mistake on their part, okay? And then it comes back the other way, because that supervisor may be thinking that you made the mistake, okay? So you're basically talking to the wall unless you know how to have a conversation with that person that allows him to be open and real and you to be open and real. And you only get there starting with you. This is probably, it all goes back, and it's in the book, it all goes back to the same thing. I am responsible. Anything that's going on in my life, what I got, what I don't got, what's happening to me, what's not happening to me, I am responsible. Because at the end of the day, stuff doesn't happen to you. Stuff happens. What you do with that has everything to do with the impact it's going to have on your life. You give up the power of controlling that impact when you take the easy route and say, oh, look what someone's doing to me. Nothing's being done to you. That other person, they're living their life. Yeah. Trust me, they're not laying in bed thinking, oh, let me go do this to screw with him. No, they're laying in their bed thinking, what can I do to, whatever they're trying to achieve, what can I do to do that? So they're living their life, right? Now, they may not understand leadership skills. They may not be great at coaching. They may still be on their journey and still need to grow and learn some more things. So I approach the problem that way. If someone above me does something that I perceive has a negative impact on me, right? I approach it that way, And there's some conversation I only have. Sometimes it's just him being him, and time has taught me he's just being him, and I work around it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I've been doing this training, and it speaks about that. Sometimes subconsciously you did things without realizing that created that action, and you're not seeing your part in that role, right? And you can't blame the scorpion for stinging at the end of the day. If that's how they are, then you also have to assess that, at the end of the day.
One of the greatest things helped me in this area, Brian, I'm going to tell you this, is my alcoholism. Getting sober was a great process because it gave me an opportunity to really learn how to look at my behavior, my part in every situation. Really, it's a life tool that it gave me because it allows me on a daily basis to take in every situation, take a look at it, and look at it from my perspective. what's in my hands on this? What did I do? What could I have done? What should I do, right? How's that going to impact somebody else, right? So it's really been a life-changing experience, and it's something that I carried with me all through my life now.
Yeah, I love it. I'm not sure who said it, but they say life's not happening to you, it's happening from you, right?
Well, that goes back to the other thing. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of times we don't realize it, but we're calling it. You know, that which you most think about, that's what you're going to have. Whether it's what you want or what you don't want, whatever you're most thinking about, that's what you're drawing in and calling into your life.
Let me ask you, how do you make sure collaborators, don't feel like they're doing things because you're forcing them to, but you create that environment where they're doing things with you, right? At the end of the day, they're side by side, pushing towards the same goal as you mentioned earlier.
Therein lies the secret. I used to talk about this a lot, control. True control is getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. Okay, well, that's coaching. It's fine. First off, you got to invest time. You got to be willing to invest your time in finding out what's important to people, right? And I'm going to give you a great story on this. I years ago, I had a team member. I was responsible for a group, and I was doing a meeting, and we used to do these incentives every month about guys that would go out and produce the most. We had these incentives, and this particular month, it was, I think we were giving away a color TV, right? This big screen color TV. And as I noticed, like, this one guy in a meeting constantly in the meeting, I'd be looking at him, I'd be looking at his eyes. It's like the lights weren't on, right? And I'll never forget this. After the meeting one time, I was in a conversation with him. He talked about he's building his house. So I made a comment. I said, "Oh, I'd like to see that sometime." He goes, "Well, come on." I said, "Oh, okay, I can give you a ride home." And his house was way out in one of the underdeveloped areas. And I got in the car with him, drove out there, took him all the way. It took like 45 minutes to get out there. I get out there and I see this house. And it's about a quarter of the way built, right? He's got one little room done that they're living in, dirt floor, right? And he's got the basic layout of the house with bricks there. And I'm looking there, and I had this amazing insight. I said, Jesus, this guy doesn't even have electricity. No wonder that big screen TV.
He don't care about the TV.
No wonder I ain't connecting there. And do you know, once I learned that, I sat down with him the next day, and I had a conversation where I said, "Look, dude, I'm going to do something for you, okay? If you do this, right, and you make these numbers, every week I'm going to buy some bricks and some cement that you can then take up to your house and continue on your work." Night and day change. I mean, it's night and day. Took immediate. It was such a learning lesson for me that the failure was mine, because I hadn't taken the time to understand what drove that person, because I hadn't taken the time and invested in him to listen about him and understand him. When you can discover what's important to other people, you don't have those type of challenges of getting them to buy into your plan, because you understand how to make it their plan. And then they're doing what you need them to do because they want to do it.
It's an idea of that sales process. Leadership is at the end of the day kind of sales. You just have to find and unlock the why the people that work with you, right?
It's all sales.